Good. I'm also show here again. This way. This time you have to do the two different sounds before. Okay. And now we are inside the last house of enslaved, like I told you before. Inside the house, they will keep 150 enslaved. They will separate them by age and by sex between the different cells. But the minimum weight was adjusted for the men. It was a 60 kilo. Because of that, they was called this cell the weighing room. And the men less than 60 kilo, they bring them inside the cell. We call the cell for temporal unfit. They feed them with the beans, palm oil, and make them fat and strong. Because the men more than 60 kilo was expensive, and the young girls. And we have 5 cells for the men, 3 in this side, 2 at the other side. We have 1 cell for the kids, 1 cell for the men less than 60 kilo, 1 cell for the 1 cell for the men less than 60 kilo, 3 cells for the punishment, 1 bigger cell for the women and the children for the breastfeeding, and the waiting cell for the slave more than 60 kilo. And upstairs was a mat for the merchant office and merchant living room. But let's start here, please. And here was for 15 or 20 persons. The men was sit on the floor here, all around the wall, with vehicles on the hand, the neck, and the bolt. They was free 1 time a day only to go to the bathroom. Before that, or after that, the men who have a diarrhea, they want to vomit, urinate, like all natural needed, they was obligated to do that here, and when the night come, they sleep on it. And this place was not cement before, it was like a mud, the sludge. They sleep on it half naked because they was put just the hide sex to hide the private part. And they will stay here 2 months or 2 months and a half, or sometimes 3 months, to wait for the boat to come from the ship, who come from the different countries like the Gulf of Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Benin, Togo, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Gambia, and Senegal was the last destination before leave Africa definitively to the final destination. And during the crossing, 25 to 50% can die, 25 or 100% can die between Africa and final destination. This was for 15 or 20 men. And here was the cell for the kids. Sometimes this cell was full of children because they can have more than 20 different families inside this house. But for the kids, they just look the teeth of them like horses. If they have enough teeth, they say they can eat alone. They bring them here. If they don't have enough teeth, they leave them with moms for the breastfeeding. They used to bring the children on the different fields because they can transport the luggage. They can do the small works like domestic or the mines. Because of smaller sizes, they can get inside the mines easily. And they used to exchange the children with a mirror, necklaces, small bottles of alcohol, or sometimes they used to exchange them with earrings. All this place was for the kids. They was naked completely without a mom. And here was a cell for the young girls. Sometimes this cell was for 25 young girls, sit on the floor here, all around the wall, but the merchants and the military was not allowed to come in Africa with a wife. And they would choose between the young girls who was beautiful, clean, or virgin to rape them. But with the time, the raped young girl can be pregnant, she can have a daughter or son, they call them mulatto, like a mule between donkey and horse. But the children between merchant and African young girls have the same status like a mom. Like if the mom was free, the children become free. If the mom was slave, the children stay slave. But the merchant and the young girls can be married just for a few months or a few years. They call this kind of marriage the style of country. Because the merchant came here for the business, the military for the mission, they can stay here a few months, but when the merchant go back in Europe or America, if you don't have enough money to come back in Africa again like a merchant, or you don't have another mission in Africa like a military, he can write a letter and send in Africa and explain to his wife. The reason of why he cannot come back, or he will be back, but it will take a long time before come back. And the wife was allowed to have another husband. She can keep the family of first husband, she can take the family of second husband. She can have 2, 3, or 4 different husbands with a time. We cannot call them a husband family because they have a lot. They just call them senhor, and senhor is the formation of Portuguese word senhora. But the different houses here in Goree or Saint-Louis of Senegal was living by the senhor or descendants of those senhor. But the young girls and the men more than 60 kilo was expensive. The children and the women was 4 times cheaper, but the values of slave depend to the destination. Like, if the slave had to work on the fields, there was exchange with sugarcane, cottons, rice, corns, beans. If they have to work on the mines, there was exchange with a copper, silver, gold, iron bar, or sometimes with a gun or gunpowder, or there was exchange 25% to 1 horse or 30% to 1 horse. You can imagine it, one animal was expensive and had more value than 30 human beings before for the white merchants. And this sale was for 25 young girls. And here was the cell for the men less than 60 kilo. As you can see, was the cell for the men less than 60 kilo, the temporal outfit. It was a place they bring the men less than 60 kilo to feed them with the beans, palm oil, and corn to make them fat and strong. But they choose between the slave who are allowed to eat and who are not allowed to eat. Like a woman and children was cheaper. They feed them 1 time a day or 1 time in 2 days just to keep them alive. But this cell was for the men less than 60 kilo. It was a cell for the temporal outfit, the feeding room. And here was for the punishment. And here was for the punishment. They say nobody can tell you exactly how many people can get inside. It can be 5, 10, or 15% inside, and they can stay here 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days without the food, or sometimes also with all natural needs they stay on it. And when they're getting out, they have a difficult to stand up, and some of them can die inside because the slave can be sick, but they don't have a doctor for them. They don't have a medicament for the sickness slave, and they don't have a cemetery for the sickness slave. When the slave was sick or dying, they just throw them on the ocean by the door we call the door of no return, with a ball of 20 pounds on the legs of slave, and the slave will sink directly. And Nelson Mandela was here for his official visit. He was getting inside here. Just a few minutes later, they found him with tears because Nelson Mandela was still on the jail, 23 years. But a few minutes was enough for him to imagine it, how it was ghastly to stay inside the cell with a natural needed and sometimes without the food. We can look inside, it's small. Masawai. And here was for the men less than 60 kilo. Sorry, it was for the punishment too. But there's 2 small windows at the both sides. It was just to commemorate the end of slave trade in French colonies in 1848. And exactly day was April 27 when they put the 2 small windows at the both sides for the 2nd time. And as you can see here, the 2 small windows wasn't exist before. It was like the first one, the punishment cell. And here was the biggest cell for the punishment. They was bring the slave here, they tie them here and they beat them. After beat them, they can have a wound because they just spill them the seawater because when the wound can be infected, the seawater are salty. We can add the pain of a wound, and the slave can be sick. But like I told you, they are not allowed to be sick because they don't have a doctor for them. They don't have a medicament for the sickness slave. The only thing they can do for them is just to throw them on the ocean by the door we call the door of no return, with a ball of 20 pounds on the boat of slave, and the slave will sink directly. They don't give them any chance to survive. And here was a bigger cell for the punishment. And here was for the woman. This cell was for 25 or 30 women. They will sit on the floor here all around the wall. But the woman can stay here. She can hear her daughter crying at other side or screaming. She doesn't know why the children crying. The only thing she can do or imagine it is, I'm here, I'm hungry, thirsty. When the night comes, I can't sleep. My son or my daughter are doing the same, and they used to sell them separately, like a father in Cuba, children in Haiti, mother in Brasilia, or they can sell all family in same country but to the different owners, like a father in sugar fields in Pernambuco, mother in cotton fields in Bahia, children in iron mines in Rio de Janeiro. They don't know our destination, but only the stronger and like a slave can arrive to the final destination. As you can see, this cell was for 15 or 20 women, 25 women, kids sit on the floor just for the breastfeeding with the baby sometimes. And there was a waiting cell for the slave more than 60 kilos. It was a waiting cell at both sides for the slave more than 60 kilos. And the two last cell was the same waiting cell, but they say sometimes the cell was used where they've got the African people who collaborated with slave masters. And here, as you can see, this door we call the door of no return, because they say behind the door, when he was a sea upper, they will work on the bridge for the shipment. When he was a sea lower, they put them inside a small boat for the shipment. When the slave was getting out through here, it was goodbye forever in Africa. Because of that, we call them the door of no return. Monsieur, on travaille?
Non, moi aussi je travaille.
Mais là, ce que vous faites, vous nous avez trouvé ici, il faut patienter.
Je ne savais pas, moi aussi.
Okay, let's continue. And as you can see, we call the door.
Je travaille, moi aussi. Tu es pressé, je suis pressé.
Non, non, c'est pas pareil. Moi, je suis professionnel, je suis dans mon lieu de travail. Il ne faut pas parler de ça. Regarde, moi, j'ai ma carte ici.
Vas-y.
Oui. And as you can see here, the door, we call the door of no return. But they call because they say we will find the bridge. When he was a sea upper, they work on the bridge for the shipment. When he was a sea lower, they put them inside a small boat to bring them for the shipment. When the slave was getting out through here, they called it was goodbye forever in Africa. Because of that, they call the door of no return. And the bridge, they put the wall here in 1999 just to protect the house from the sea erosion. And because of that, and the Pope Jean Paul II was stand here in 1992 and asked for forgiveness in Africa, to forgive in Africa, but a lot of people say they can forgive, but they will never forget. And it was here. Because the Portuguese was the first European who sold African people like enslaved in 1441, and it was where the slave trade was began. 1441 to 1888, the slave trade was during 4th century and 47 years. And UNESCO was estimated, they say, the slave trade was done more than 210 million victims in Africa. During 4th century and 47 years, began to 1441 and abolished definitively by Cuba and Brasilia, the two last countries, in 1888. But in America it was in 1863, in French 1848, by the British 1833, in America it was in 1863. And just you can see, we call the door here, the door of no return.
Escute, you're a professional.
Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, but let me show you the sound. And here was a same cell for the man. It was a cell for the man. You can see it was like this. And you can imagine it with a natural needed. And this cell was not human before. You can see one day only to get to the bathroom. And they say they will spill them the seawater 3 times a week just to take it out the mud on their body. They stay half naked. And the final destination was they sell them naked. Because all was just about the physique of slavery. The young girls was about the breasts and the women also, but the men was have to be strong. to be expensive. And just here. And here we have a message of a different personality who visited us here, as you can see here. And the Pope was here in 1992 when he was staying on the door of Lorton to ask for grain in Africa. And this was how they put them inside the boat, like a coffin. And they stayed here in this position maybe 3 days or 4 days, just like this here. And sometimes the boat can sink with 400, 600 persons inside the boat, like a coffin. If you throw the coffin on the ocean, and they will sink directly. And here we have pictures of a different personality. Start to Nelson Mandela, to George Bush, Obama, Bill Clinton, Jacob Zuma, and Obama is here. And the message of French president here, former French president François Hollande, and Barack Obama is here. And we have a message of first period of slave house, like we see Boubacar Youssef Ndiaye, and the kind of hamper they use for the hand. Usually we are not allowed to touch it. And this was a ball of 20 pounds you put with chains on the leg of slave, and the slave will sink directly. Will, you want to do? Masa energi? Ansa ganis? Zaman lagi nak mana yang lain anda mana boh? Dia semua lagi selalu dehar mawar. Wah. Okay, what you kanan? And this was the hamper, like this was for the two slaves. Left bolt and right bolt. When they put them together inside the boat, and here we have a bolt of 20 pounds on the leg. It will not throw them, and slave will sink directly. And this was the hand for the hand of two slaves, one slave, sorry. And this was for the neck, and this was for the hand also. And this was kind of gun that was used for the hunting. But if you walk around, you can see on the pictures, the different pictures, the kind of guns they have. Okay. But here is all for the slave house, and after you can walk by yourself. If you have a question, you can ask me, but I have to go home.
This is our brother again.
Ouattara Gausu, but my family name is what?
Ouattara Gausu.
Ouattara, yes.
Gausu Ouattara, thank you for everything.
It's a good brother. Can you ask me one question?
Yes.
When we talk about history, sometimes the people in Europe think that they were civilized and they had clothes already, and when they came to Africa they saw people naked. So at the end of the day, the nakedness of the African people, was it already here before, or was it because the slavery masters let the slaves naked and sold them? What would you say?
But when we've come on the different village, and even in the different village sometimes, when you get there, you can see the people, some of them, they are half naked, and some of them on the different, like Amazonia, you can find the people naked completely. It was just a kind of culture. But the African was put the cloth before, but it's up to the different village. But also, they found them with the hide sex. Because as Africa is hot, some of them they found them with the hide sex, and with the time when they hide sex, they don't have a time to exchange the hide sex because it was dirty. They was obligated to abandon the hide sex and they stay naked. And when they bring them on final destination, they give them some time, the shirt or the pants, and they stay with them. But also they will say the slave was not allowed. They were only on Sunday the slave was allowed to to put the clothes correctly. Or they stay naked or half naked on the different fields. They stay half naked. But some of the village, the African was dressed, they have good dress, nice dress, because they say the civilization was black before. And a lot of people, when they come on Africa before, they found the African people, the kings, and the different warriors with the clothes and the different like jewelry. And I saw this morning, the picture, it was before the creation of Versace. But it was made by African people before. I saw that this morning on Facebook. By the African people, if you see the picture, it's black and white. Or if you see the African people, there was just in a different village. They have a dress, African dress, and the mark of Versace behind, like a background. It was like.
Thank you very much,
You're
brother.
welcome. You're welcome.
The island of Goree in Senegal, the place of no return back in the days.